Welcome to the Global Roundtable. This series focuses on the future of economic competition. I'm Parag Khanna, joined by a very distinguished panel, including Dambisa Moyo, Daniel Altman, and Anand Giridharadas. Can America compete? The United States is actually the second largest economy in the world, behind the European Union, and we know that China has surpassed Japan to be the third largest economic entity in the world. But what really matters is who's up and who's down in different sectors of the economy. America is creating jobs in some areas and losing jobs in others. So what is it going to take for America to be the most competitive power?
A huge number of Americans are increasingly themselves not competitive within the country and in the world. And that is a much more serious issue than the question of, is America going to be kind of number 1, 2, or 3 in that macro ranking?
One of our great benefits in the space race was that we had the GI Bill. We took all of these people and gave them a lot more education than they had before. So when technological change affected the way that an economy would grow, they'd be able to participate. We need a new GI Bill for people who are dislocated by globalization, just as they were by the war.
Fundamentally, the world needs the United States to really focus on innovation and R&D, because that is actually what people around the world are willing to pay America for. We're still happy to pay for innovation in sciences, still happy to pay in innovations in healthcare and medicine, but the issue here is that that's still a very small proportion of the American economy.
We've been hearing, though, about worker retraining and the two Americas problem ever since John Edwards in the 2004 U.S. presidential election. Here we are 7 years later, and we don't have that GI Bill to retrain the masses for new industries, nor do we have a consensus on exactly what they should be retrained for. We're really at the same place we've been for a decade, so really, how do we get out of it?
One of the ways we can do that is by letting the private sector solve the problem in a market-based approach. What we don't have in this country in most industries is a market for training. So there's no reason for me to invest in a worker if I think that worker might leave my company and I'll get no compensation for the training.
Well, India is a country that is growing tremendously by investing in the skills of its people. However, that too is not jobless growth, but it certainly isn't speaking to the masses of Indian society.
What's happening in India is India's learned the lesson of an older America, which is if you get social mobility right, to your point, a lot of other things work without you having to do much. Even if you don't build the roads you should, you don't electrify the villages you should. To the extent that you create a fire of people wanting to be mobile, believing in mobility, and having some means to do it, it's reasonably self-sustaining. This country is losing that assumption. Ordinary middle class, lower middle class people in this country are losing the assumption that any other fate for them is possible.
It's very interesting that what we've agreed is that America does need some kind of comprehensive program to strengthen the capacity of its workers to compete, and yet at the same time, the market is going to decide what it is that they're going to be best at doing. So very interesting insights here on the future of competition in the global economy. More on that and other relevant topics at bigthink.com.